Okie dokie. We're at 7:03 and we've got a decent number of participants. So I think we'll start the meeting. The way this works is you've got Town of Gibson's staff here that are the panelists. So we've got Marcy, who's our admin whiz, and she's taking care of running the meeting in the background, doing all the stuff for Zoom. She is recording the meeting, Marcy, I believe, for the purposes of minutes or what have you. Is that correct?
And there will also be a link to the meeting from our webpage.
Gotcha. Okay.
Or to the recording of the meeting.
Thank you. And then we also have Kelly Coper with us, who is our capital project coordinator. And so she's the face that some of you have already seen out there, I believe, and that you will be most likely seeing on site for the Well 6 project. And I'm Dave Newman. I'm the Director of Infrastructure Services. We've got a fairly simple agenda. For starters, I want to kind of set the stage for this meeting. Second of all, I want to provide some background on the project itself. And then we'll go into Q&A. And you can do a virtual raise your hand. I believe it should be at the bottom of your screen that you can click the raise your hand. And Marcy will be keeping tabs on you and will be letting you in one at a time to ask your questions, and then I'll do my best to answer them. And then she'll bring the next person in. So kind of basically one at a time. These Zoom meetings have turned out to be a very effective way of engaging a neighborhood. At least that's my experience. And it's we've got a couple members of council in on the meeting as well. They are attendees, and so they're listening into what you have to say, as well as what answers staff may be providing. Excuse me. So for starters, I think these neighborhood meetings and so on are often the only time many of our residents get to see staff. You may see us in passing, but with many of our projects that we have, unless we're in your neighborhood and you've had a chance to chat with us on the side of the street, this may be the first time that you've met myself, Marcy, or Kelly. I think planning staff tend to have a little bit more exposure with the public, because there seems to be a little bit more interest in development as a town-wide thing. But when we come to projects, it's essentially the neighborhood that that would be potentially impacted, that we get you folks out. And as I say, by Zoom, we get far more of you, so that's great. So we've had a number of emails come in and concerned about the consultation or lack thereof with the neighborhood. I believe it was first brought up with somebody who actually did not have the opportunity of the notification we sent around when we were drilling the well itself. And so this was the first that they had heard of the project. We typically will send out notices to residents when a project is underway. With this particular project, there wasn't much choice in where to put it. So there we had to drill the well where there was most likelihood of finding water. And then of course we had to build the pump house where the successful well was. So a little bit of background on the well 6 itself. We actually have a well 5 that is not commissioned, and that was drilled in the first most likely place, which was down in Dougal Park. And that was next to or nearby one of our best producing wells, which is well 3. And ironically, that one did not produce anywhere near what we needed. And so we left the hole in the ground, and we have not brought that one online yet. And so we were looking for our second best choice. And with the information that Waterline Resources, who are our hydrogeologist gurus, they determined that the location where we are right now had the most likelihood of encountering the volume of water that we needed. And so this one has the potential to deliver around 1,900 cubic meters of water a day. And that is approximately equal to the average daily water that the current population uses. This well not only will provide water for growth in the town, but also will provide a backup should we have to take one of our other wells offline. With some of the other concerns that were brought up with the project and so on, some were critical of staff, and there was also a pointing out that in many instances, or some instances, you did not receive a response, and largely that lack of response was from me. For that, I do apologize. It's not the level of service that we would like to provide. We would like to provide a level of service where, obviously, where the taxpayers or the people inquiring about what's happening in the town received a high priority. And email is kind of a blessing and a curse, because, for example, yesterday, even without any emails from Oceanmount, I received 125 emails, and that is literally impossible for me to respond to every one of them, let alone read them. And so it's a challenge that I haven't yet figured out a good way around, receiving so much correspondence via email that I just cannot respond to it. And I do try and scan them and prioritize them so that folks like you do get a response. But I'll be on a meeting for a couple hours, and I've had 30 emails, and so it's a challenge that we have to work with. And as I say, I apologize that some of you did not receive a response. And if you've got any brilliant ideas on how to cut that down, that would be great. You can let Marcy know. And also the other thing, that 125 emails that I received do not include the ones that are sent to our general infrastructure email. And I haven't asked Marcy to count those. So a tremendous amount of community inquiry, as well as just general busyness in the town. The other thing is that Kelly has only recently joined us, so she came on board in January. We had another fellow that had took us quite a while to get a suitable candidate. and he stuck around for about 6 months. Good guy, but he had to move back into the interior. He had a better chance of purchasing a home. So that's a problem that a lot of places are seeing is staffing, retaining staff, attracting staff when there is such a steep cost on housing. So that being said, you will also, when you get to know us, hopefully partially during this Zoom meeting, but also Kelly, it's on site, and sometimes myself, is that we are very collaborative. We are interested in hearing any thoughts, and we're not just a faceless person in the basement of town hall, and we do like engaging with the public. So that's us. That's a little bit of the background on the project. Actually, one other thing in regards to the project is because of the water metering that the town initiated back in 2009, where is also the same year that the hydrogeologists water line started working with the town. So they're the hydrogeologists that know the most about the aquifer, have all the modeling and so on. So we did the water metering project starting in 2009, and that reduced the amount of water being used by the town to a point where we could extend our service area up into the area we call Zone 3. Oceanmount's in Zone 2, Lower Gibson's is Zone 1, and those are just different pressure zones in the town. So we saved enough water to be able to actually deliver water to the projected ultimate population of the entire town instead of just zones 1 and 2. So that was through the metering program, which adjusted people's habits to a degree, but also provided a lot of opportunity for leak detection. And if you live on the Sunshine Coast, that water is a big deal. And this past year actually was the first year that the town was able to backfeed the regional district during a time of their water, during their water crisis. I just saw a note come up about the agenda. The agenda is setting the stage, the project background, and Q&A. We didn't provide a written agenda. So some of the concerns that we've heard so far, and I'm hoping that maybe I can address several of your concerns in one go. So there has been a concern about noise, and there's several things that are being done in the design already, and a couple that we have asked to be added. One of them is to add additional sound insulation both on the outside and the inside of the building. Another one is that the engineers actually suggested this, that they'll be using the AC, the air conditioning, instead of the exhaust fans as a primary means of cooling the building. There should be very little noise coming from that pump house. The pumps are also in the pipes down below ground, as opposed to being up in the pump house, like well 1, for example. And so they're quieter because of that as well. I've heard complaints or concerns about well 3, and well 3, there's nothing that would cause anyone to wear earplugs while they're sleeping. However, what happens down in Lower Gibson's, the electricians call it dirty power, and we get frequent power outages in Lower Gibson's. And I live about 2 blocks away, still in Lower Gibson's, but just down at the foot of the bluff. And Lower Gibson's, they probably lose power, I would suspect, easily 10 times the number of times that I do. and I can actually hear the generators when they go off in my house. And there's there's 3 generators that are fairly close proximity, that during a power outage they'll kick on to make sure that we keep water and sewage flowing. So it's more than likely that the excess sound that folks are hearing where they have to sleep with earplugs is from multiple generators going off, and going off far more frequently in Lower Gibsons because of power issues. The appearance is probably the other point that I've heard a lot about, and one was the height of the building. And so the questions being, why is it so high? And that is because of the electrical equipment and the HVAC system. And also, although I didn't quite get it when I was talking to the engineer briefly, they also need working room above the electrical equipment itself. However, they've done some rejigging and managed to lower the height of the building by about 0.7 of a meter. So call that a little over 2 feet, about 28 inches. And I've also asked them that height is required over the electrical area. Over the pump house or the pump area where the motors are, that does not require as much height. And so I've asked them to look at lowering that part of the roof a bit more than the 0.7 that they've managed. We're also, although I don't know that we got much in the way of complaints about aesthetics in general, as opposed to just the height, is that I've also asked them to make some changes to the appearance with kind of like a hardy shingle on the gable ends, and a slightly steeper pitched roof with a dormer on it that will, and that's why we'd be able to actually lower it by 0.7, is that some of that room now is from a dormer roof, a shed dormer that is provides that additional height. And we'll also do an exterior finish that's similar to what is seen in that neighborhood. And then we have landscaping screening around the building as well. I had indicated that we're taking neighborhood feedback, and there was concerns about why are you doing it now instead of pre-tender. Essentially, as I mentioned, we have no choice as to where to build the well because that's where the water is. And it's extremely expensive to take shots in the dark or holes in the ground in areas that are not going to, or that will be in a preferable location, I suppose, because I think that was in excess of $100,000 to drill that one hole. So we have to go with the best information we have as to where the water is. And then that, of course, dictates where the pump house has to be. So there wasn't really any choice in the matter as far as that goes. And the pump house itself is a box that has to house the equipment that is necessary to run the well. And so that box essentially is a predetermined size. There's nothing that can be done particularly about the size. We've had, the electrical engineers and mechanical engineers keep everything as compact as we can while we still have room to work around it. My earlier correspondence in 2019 indicated a garden shed size building. I did not say how big the garden shed was in my defense, but it it was probably a parallel I shouldn't have put out there, but more to the point that it wasn't going to be a huge building. And as far as the adjustments that can be made post-tender, honestly, I'm not particularly worried about taking input now on the things that we can change, because those things that we could change are just the same as before we tendered as to now. So as I say, we've got a box, we've got to put it in a certain location. Now we're just talking about really the appearance and some additional sound attenuation. So I think that probably gives you enough background for now, in order for you to be able to ask some questions. And I'm going to ask Marcy to admit you one at a time. And please keep in mind that we're here to collaborate. And while I've heard your frustration via email and some concerns, we are here to collaborate with you, whether it's at a different time than you would have preferred. We're here to do that, and more than willing to listen to any suggestions or queries that you have, and any that we can attend to, we will. We've got consultants and contractors that are more than willing to work with us. So we'll kick it off, and Marcy, if you wouldn't mind letting the first person over.
Yeah, so I think, Crystal, I'll allow you to talk, and you do have a couple questions in both of the chat and the Q&A. I don't know if you want to read those. I'd also just request that anybody who speaks, if you could please just state in general if you're near the well that's going in, or sort of just within the neighborhood. You don't have to give an exact address, that's fine. And maybe just your first name too.
And we're also going to keep you to roughly 2 minutes, and Marcy might have to put a time limit on my responses as well.
All right, Crystal, you have the floor.
Hi, I'm Crystal. I live just directly across the street from where this is proposed at 902 Oceanmount.
Yep.
I'm interested in knowing a little bit more about this process of locating this particular spot.
Sure. Yep.
You said that this area was decided that it was a suitable spot. We live very close to both the Inglis Trail Park and the Mahan Park. And I'm surprised that, a public parks area that's not right within a residential area would make more sense than being right beside houses. Were not either of those parks within this suitable area?
Yep. So we did actually look at White Tower as well. And so the way we determine, or more to the point, the way that the consultants determine where the best possibility is of encountering water is based on mapping and underground mapping. And so initially what we did was we had the first well logs that from our wells down in Lower Gibsons. We put in some monitoring wells, one of which is on Oceanmount, and we've got I think 7 different locations. And so every time a hole is poked in the ground, we get the information from that well log, and that goes to the consultant, and they model what the aquifer looks like. And there's some extrapolation between holes. And then the other thing that we do is annually we collect all the information from well logs that are drilled for instance, geotechnical investigation. And those are all sent as well to Waterline. So gradually what happens is they map out what the depth of the till is, how far down the aquifer itself is, all of that information. So that's how they determine that Oceanmount was the best location. And although we did look at, and my preference certainly would have been to be in a, White Tower Park, for example. We actually have monitoring wells up there, and so they know what the soils look like. And Oceanmount was still, even though it seemed fairly close, still a better location to drill a well. Crystal, I thought did you say you had two questions, Crystal?
No, that's fine.
Okay.
I'll pass it on to other people that want to share.
And I think I've just out of the corner of my eye seeing questions about the 2-minute timeline. It is to give everybody an opportunity to be able to ask their questions. And if we still have more questions after that haven't been answered by the responses to other people asking questions, more than willing to go around again. But if we keep it to the 2 minutes for now, then we'll be able to give everyone an opportunity to speak. So Marcy.
Okay, so we have Phil up next.
Yep. Hi, Phil. You're on mute, I think. Yeah,
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. Really disappointed in the 2-minute time frame. Really not an appropriate amount of time for proper discussion and discourse.
As I say, if you have more questions after that, we'll go around again. So this won't be your only opportunity. It's just
that's not the point, Dave. Dave, listen to me. That's not the point. You're not allowing for a proper amount of appropriate time for persons to relay their concerns and ask questions.
Well, let's give it a shot.
I respectfully ask that you extend my time, but here we go. Okay, my name is Phil DeBrule. I live at 897 Oceanmount Boulevard. My pronouns are he and him. Thank you for putting this meeting together to allow residents in the community at large an opportunity to ask questions, to outline their concerns about this Oceanmount supply well. That's 6 and 7 pump house project. I'm speaking on behalf of the Oceanmount, excuse me, neighborhood group comprised of 30+ individuals. And I'd like to take a moment to outline a series of concerns as it relates to the planning, communications, and implementation of this project. I want to start out by saying that the neighborhood group understands that the region is growing and that a demand for additional water infrastructure is needed. That's understood. We're not opposed to having a reasonably sized project. What concerns us involves the Township of Gibson's staff complete lack of process and meaningful consultation, which is contrary to what you're claiming, which is that you have done so. I also want to make clear that our position is that the neighborhood association, that our Oceanmount neighborhood group rather, are seeking to delay the construction of this project, which is scheduled to break ground any day now, until an appropriate level of consultation occurs. That said, we have discussed the matter amongst ourselves as a group and are seeking the following: that the town of Gibson's issue a stop work order. This action provides opportunity to right a flawed process and provides the Township of Gibson staff to mitigate concerns and revisit the design phase of this hastily moved project. If the town are not prepared to move forward and cooperate in this way, the group are 100% committing to pursuing legal recourse as a means to achieve this very reasonable means to an end. Staff claim that they consulted with residents, but in fact, what they have done is provided one-way information. I'll say that again, one-way information that states only when they plan to do something, while also not asking for feedback. In that respect, residents are left trying to grasp with the impacts of the town staff decisions, and to compound the matter, when they have tried to reach out to the town for information, as you so well put earlier, Dave, they're met with either no information or residents weren't responded to at all. The town only recently revealed the scope of this project, which went from a garden-sized shed, as you mentioned earlier, to a substantially larger pump house that comprises not only one, but two wells and a generator, the length of which is 42 feet long and close to 2 stories high. To be clear, residents have not been provided with a single meaningful two-way interaction that allows staff to capture them and mitigate the major issues and concerns that impact them. No open house, no survey, no informational interviews, nothing. Instead, the project was awarded. The construction phase is going to begin any day now, and we're being told two conflicting things. We'll have this Zoom meeting designed to listen to your concerns, no prior agenda, by the way. And then staff tells us only cosmetic changes are going to really occur at this stage. In light of this completely illogical sequence of events, we're hoping that the mayor and council on this call will realize that they awarded the Oceanmount project with misleading information provided by town staff with respect to the town having followed, or the town not having followed guidelines and policies of providing meaningful two-way engagement opportunities. The hope is that council will retable this matter for discussion at the upcoming March 15th council meeting, and from that, a motion will be tabled to postpone the project until which time an appropriate level of consultation occurs and residents' reasonable concerns are mitigated completely and or removed. To your point, Dave, that you're very collaborative and that you're engaging with the public, it's a little bit too late too soon, considering the horse is about a country mile ahead of the cart.
Okay, thanks, Phil. I'd like to respond to some of those comments. So as I mentioned, whether the consultation had occurred pre-tender or what have you, the choice of the location and the size of the pump house are determined by what is required and where the water is. And because the council made the decision to drill the well at that location with information from staff, and that was the location that was determined to be best in order to encounter water. So the location, as I say, was already set, and so there was not really any consultation to do, because when we're talking about communication, we're talking about informing, collaborating, input, etc., as to what level of input is possible or reasonable for a given project. And so because, as I say, the location of the well was predetermined by science and modeling, and the size of the pump house was established by the necessary equipment, those things are more or less off the table, because we don't have the funds to be able to stick more holes in the ground in places where there's less chance of getting water and more chance of it being in a non-residential area. So as I mentioned, whether or not that consultation, which is happening right now, occurred pre-tender or post-tender, we are talking about some cosmetic changes because we can't change the size of the pump house. We are looking, as I mentioned, to we've lowered it to 0.7, and we're looking at some changes in the roof design to be able to address that concern. And what I'm interested in as well is to hear what those concerns are from the neighborhood, because you mentioned that there's several concerns that are being brought forward, and I've seen some of those in the emails. I mentioned to you at the beginning that apologies for the lack of response, and I honestly don't know what to do about that, because I actually had an opportunity to go with my daughter down to California when she was on a course that she was taking, and I took my work with me, and I just spent the day responding to emails that I received that day. And so I started at 8 o'clock in the morning. And the one day I finished at 4:30, and all I had done was respond to emails, nothing else. The next day, same thing, except that I got some emails after 4:30. And as I say, 125 emails in a day, it is just absolutely not possible to respond to all of them. And I do apologize for allowing residents' emails to disappear below the bottom of my screen. I don't like providing that level of service, and I do apologize for the lack of response. However, as mentioned, what we can do, whether it was earlier or now, is to listen to what the concerns are and let you know how we can address those. And I indicated, cosmetic or minor changes. And what I meant by that was, no, we can't change where the pump house is going to be, and no, we can't change where the water is, or the size of the pump house. So what is left there is the largely how the pump house looks, and you've got members of council that are listening into what you're saying, and if they choose, they can ask staff to do whatever they want at the next meeting. Whether that is stopping work or what have you. But honestly, the stopping work is well, I mean, I suppose it's an option, but we are here to listen to your concerns. And so that's what I want to do, is I want to listen to your concerns and let us know, and me let you know what we can do to address those. And so until we've done that, I don't even know if I've captured all of the concerns that I had mentioned about noise and appearance. And I would like to hear what some of those concerns are. Marcy, you're on mute.
I don't know if there was any follow-up, Phil. Otherwise, we'll move on to the next person who has a question. You can always come back if there's more you'd like to say. Okay.
And Marcy, I'm just going to disappear from screen to grab no water.
Okay, but you can still hear us.
Yep.
All right, so we're going to move on to Des Delaney. Just one moment, Des. There we go. So Des, you're on. You just need to unmute, please.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So my name's Des Delaney. I'm representing the Gibsons Resident and Ratepayers Association as the president. And so I just have a question on the broader context of this new well. Basically, in this spirit of collaboration, I think perhaps it may be beneficial for everyone to take it even further on the basis that, and you share the information. This well is going to be the primary source of water for the Gospel Rock project, and the proposed route for the water supply to the Gospel Rock project will be down the new road that comes from that point all the way down to Gospel Rock. And I think the community should be probably more aware of the bigger picture, not just on this pump house, but the fact that there are a lot of other things attached to it, apart from the noted, if our water supply goes down to supply Seashell, SCRD district, that in actual fact, this is sort of critical to the Gospel Rock project being able to go ahead. And basically no building permits could be issued for the Gospel Rock project without a water service to that location, because you're not going to issue building permits for things that don't have water or sewer or whatever attached to it. So, my question is that perhaps in the bigger picture, the community should be aware of where this fits in overall.
Certainly.
So that's just the question.
Yep. So this, the OCP, the official community plan, shows where all the growth is to or anticipated to occur. And the two main growth areas are in Upper Gibsons and over on Gospel Rock. And Gospel Rock neighborhood, I think, is around 1900 units, not just Block 7, but 14 properties that are part of Gospel Rock. So that's one growth area. And as I say, Upper Gibsons is another area. And then the third is general infill within the town. And our infrastructure is being sized for an ultimate population in the town of Gibsons for 10,000. So it doesn't matter where that growth occurs. If it's within town boundaries, we are supplying both sewer and potable water and roads, etc., for an ultimate population of 10,000. Doesn't matter whether it's in Gospel Rock or not. We're putting this well in before we need it, although not that far before, because it also provides us with redundancy for our own system. This well is not supplying water to Gospel Rock. Our whole network does that. So this isn't just flowing down a pipeline to Gospel Rock area. It's going to go into the whole of the Zone 2. It'll flow up to the reservoir and flow back through Zone 2. So the fact that Gospel Rock is proceeding, or Eagle View is proceeding, or any infill is proceeding, or the parkland is growing, that increases our water use, and that's what we're planning for. Thanks, Des.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. All right, we're going to move on to Rudy. So Rudy, you just need to unmute, please. And if you could mention maybe just roughly where you are living in relation to the pump.
Yeah, hi, this is Rudy Kern. I'm at 891 Oceanmount Boulevard, and just a stone's throw from the pump. Hi. Okay, so Phil's got a lot more finesse than I do, but I'm going to do my best here with my questions. I've just kind of got 2 minutes. We're going to be direct and to the point. So Dave, my first question was regarding your responses in your emails and all that kind of stuff. And on my 3 inboxes of 243, 145, and 116 emails, I have responded to all of them. So if 8 o'clock is when you start, you might need to get up earlier, but you can't have a project proceed when you don't respond. There are no excuses for that. So if you can't do it, there should be somebody on board that can. Now, my next thing is that using electric power, can you confirm the noise to be expected from the structure that you have proposed? And specifically, I'm looking people that are 40, 50, and 100 feet away from the commercial building. So we would like to know specifically what that noise level is going to be. And if there hasn't been a study done, there needs to be one done. Has there also been a report done to address, which will be the noise concern from the generator? And by our own admission, the other one 2 blocks away is a concern. We have people that are 20 feet away. So low frequency travels with significant impact points. And I would like to know where the greatest sound density will be, not only the dB rating, but the low frequency resonance, because I want to know if my bed is going to be vibrating on the bedroom floor when this thing runs. And so I don't know if you've done those reports yet or not. And we should know what kind of generator it is and how frequently we can expect it to run. Also, as for the lack of response from people in our community or our specific area, I don't know what your definition of a garden shed is, but when the town came to us and said it was a garden shed, you can expect that there wasn't a significant amount of concern around that term. So if anybody's unclear about the size of a garden shed, look it up in the dictionary. It says a slight structure built for shelter or storage, not something that is 42 by 10 feet long, 42 feet long by 10 feet wide. So, so I'm curious, was this a direct misrepresentation so that you could move forward with this. And I'm actually more curious about it now because you said once the location was set, whether we had an opinion was actually irrelevant. You said it actually doesn't matter. So it was more or less off the table, I think were the words that you used. So that brings me to my final question, which is, if there is going to be a significant noise in this area that's going to impact not only myself, but all the other people in this specific area, and it's going to cost me to lose a couple $100,000 on the value of my property, which I'm now going to have to disclose if I sell, is there any good reason that I wouldn't use the money to go after you in the town for misrepresentation of damages? And I'm not talking about myself, because you're concerned about $100,000 to dig the hole, but I think there's like 15 people in earshot of me here. I think they might have a similar opinion to me. So I'm going to go back to the stop work order before the due diligence has been done. I think that I would strongly suggest that you consider that before I make a phone call in the morning and compel one.
Thanks, Rudy. So you had a number of questions there. You talked about how many emails you receive and how you are able to respond to those. And then if I don't have the time to respond to those, then we need more, basically we need more staff. And council is aware of that. Of course, staff cost money, and staff also take up room. And so we are now full to capacity in the town hall as far as work area goes. And we've got more than enough work for a lot more people. But what that means is an impact to taxation. And these are decisions that council weighs when it comes to discussing the budget each year. I do encourage you to, for your own information as a taxpayer, to try and attend some of these budget meetings if you can, because they're held every year and typically very poorly attended. And so one staff member, as a rough rule of thumb, is a 3% tax increase. And so these are difficult decisions that are being made by council around that council table as to the level of service that they want to provide and the resources that it costs in order to do that. So you were asking about the electronics, and yes, the engineer is, they tune the electrical components to address any resonance that that they can create, such as your bed vibrating. And those are part of the electrical engineering requirements. You asked about the generator noise. It is being ordered with the maximum amount of sound dampening on the generator, and the number of times that you'll hear it is essentially when the a power outage occurs. And that, as I mentioned, is far more frequent in Lower Gibsons. And so if you've got friends or family or people that you know in Lower Gibsons that may be living closer to some of those generators, they will be going off far more frequently than Upper Gibsons. The garden shed, yeah, I apologize for that. That was I would say probably premature on my part to have talked about the size when it hadn't been designed at that point. You asked about whether that was deliberate misinterpretation or misrepresentation, pardon me. I'm not sure why there is often a, or it's not unusual for especially government workers to be accused of, collaboration with other businesses or misrepresentation. we are, I've been working at the town for 15 years, and the caliber of our staff is second to none. And having said that, we are human. We use words such as garden shed when that was an unfortunate choice of words. And I apologize for that. It was by no means a misrepresentation. We are not underhanded. We don't do things illegally. We often, a lot of us have credentials behind our name, me included. That means we have a code of ethics that we abide by. And personally, I value integrity above anything else. So misrepresentation, it's off the table. I have no knowledge of any staff of ours deliberately representing something. The legal representation, that's entirely your decision. As I say, what we are here right now is to hear residents' concerns and to be able to indicate how we can address that. And so far we've heard things about sound and size, and I feel like I've answered those reasonably well, indicating that we are putting additional insulation just in case on the inside and outside of the building. We are changing the height and the appearance of the roof. So I'd be happy to hear any other concerns that people feel, or concerns that they feel like are not adequately being addressed. Marcy, if you could, unless you have anything else, Rudy?
Yeah, so the other systems that are in place, are they the size of a garden shed?
What do you mean, the other?
Well, I'm wondering, did you use them as a point of reference? The other pump stations, are they the size of garden sheds?
They're not far off, I suppose. Maybe a large garden shed.
The large garden shed. Okay, so I think.
But honestly, Rudy, I haven't gone out there and measured them. So.
Well, you have an idea, like, garden sheds like 8 by 10 or something of that nature. I think
so
everybody has an image in their mind of a garden shed.
Mine is 10 by 10 at home.
There you go.
And
okay.
So the words that I should have used are accessory building or something like that. It was intended to be, this is not the size of a house. This is a smaller accessory building. And the accessory building I chose, I have said that was an error on my part. I won't describe it as a garden shed again. And I've got to move on from there.
So I think unanimously you're likely going to hear, if this one is represented in a similar size and context to what's pre-existing, that might be received better, but not a commercial structure, an industrial structure of the size and scope that you're talking about. I find it difficult to resolve that. And also, I just want to reiterate that I know you've talked about insulation, but has there been anything to actually measure dB and resonance? Have you done any testing for that?
No.
Or any reporting?
No, because the equipment is not in there, and that is too late.
Right. So but you should be able to go to the manufacturer of the generator.
Hold on. I'm answering the question.
Yeah.
So by the time you're doing decibel ratings on a constructed well or building, it's too late. And so we're doing that in the design phase. And so that's what the electrician is doing. And there's all sorts of wonderful stuff that electrical engineers do. And that is one of them, because you do not want to create something that is sending up an awful howl because of perfect wave frequencies, etc. And so yes, that is being done as part of the design.
So there will be a report for that.
I'm not sure if there's a report or But they come up with a design, and those are the specifications that they use. They're not going to be.
I think it's prudent to, at the very least, to see a report. I'm sure the manufacturer can produce a DB rating from the gen set without it being installed. I think that's valid information. And I would specifically like to know.
I'm not going to second guess. I can't second guess everything that the engineers do, Rudy. It's like so it's
well,
like
we're requesting that information because we have people that are in direct proximity to it, not 100 feet away, not 50 feet away, but 20 feet away. And on that generator, because I dealt with lots of people in residential applications where they had backup generators not in proximity to the house, a considerable distance away, and those generators also ran periodically just to make sure that they were okay, that everything would keep running. So is that also the case? Is this thing just going to come on like Sunday morning at 5 in the morning?
No, we have what's called a Scada system, which is a supervisory control and data acquisition. And that's how all our outside plants are done. And so those tests, I can't remember if they're monthly or every couple months. They are done at a time that we choose. And so we will not be choosing 5 o'clock in the morning to do generator tests.
Okay, I think we need to know that, part of the problem here, Dave, in fairness, is a lack of supplied information. So when I'm asking for things like DB ratings or when you're going to do those things, get up at 5 in the morning like some of us do and send those emails out to appease these concerns, not just a non-response and we're doing it anyway, because that's what we're hearing and that's frustrating to us.
Understood.
Okay.
And
thank you, Dave.
And if it's any comfort to you, I was up till 11:30 on Sunday night and 10:30 on Saturday night as well, trying to stay ahead of the workload. And unfortunately,
I'm sorry, that's incredibly frustrating. I completely understand it. I'm thrilled you had a vacation. I did 5 years ago. So there's very little sympathy from me. Just try harder. Thank you.
Gotcha. I will try harder. Marcy,
all right, we're gonna go to Chris, who's been waiting. Just one moment. Whoops. Sorry, Herschel. I'm just gonna remove you.
Hi there. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Got Chris Brandt here. Yeah. Hi, Chris.
Hi, thank you. My name is Chris Brandt. I live at 887 Oceanmount across the street from the proposed site. My kids and dogs play in the cul-de-sac. And I'm speaking to the members of council who are in attendance, and I appreciate the two of them that have identified themselves. This is not an issue of too many emails. This is misrepresenting the content of those emails to council. It would have been more accurate for Dave to say that you didn't read them rather than portray that there was positive or lack of negative feedback. In terms of aesthetics, that there has been no comments received regarding the new designs. That's because we expected a garden shed, and this is the first forum to discuss since those drawings were released. So frankly, Dave, that's disingenuous. And to make light of the garden shed representation as you did earlier, and then immediately follow with a comment that you're here to collaborate, that's disingenuous as well. There were iterations that have recently been released that we have seen the progress of the designs in 2020 and 2 progress points in 2021 showing 50 and 75 and beyond. There have been lots of opportunities to collaborate, as we've seen from the release of these drawings and the timelines affiliated with them. We want a meeting at Dougal Park with everything turned on, with the mayor and council in attendance, with DB ratings. There was a power outage 2 nights ago, and we know that people in Lower Gibsons who are close to Dougal Park sleep with earplugs. We only know about this project because Phil learned about it when the BC government employees were working on the well next to the well 6 well. He happened to go outside and he's like, "What are you doing?" This is nothing, but you should be concerned about that one. That's how the neighborhood found out about this. So you've talked about what we can do. What we can do is issue a stop work order, or we will seek a court-ordered stop until full consultation takes place.
So as I mentioned, thank you. A reminder that we are here to collaborate, and I understand that there's some frustration. Staff are here to answer as many questions as we can. And
In all
that-
fairness, Dave,
Right.
there's been 3
Hang-
years
hang
to
on, Chris.
collaborate and
Hang
have
on,
those
Chris.
conversations.
Chris, just a second. So, as mentioned, I don't even want to mention the garden shed again. The size of the rectangle that is required to house this equipment is the size that it is. We're not making it larger for any other reason except that. You've used disingenuous and representing. Both of those, I'm sorry, I can't wear.
So can you speak? So can you speak to the comments that are on record and were posted in the Coast Reporter of you saying that no negative feedback? I'm paraphrasing.
Yeah.
No negative feedback has been received about this. That was what you delivered to council at the last meeting, and
No,
is
it
on the
was-
record.
Yeah, and what was on record was that we had received no negative feedback in regards to the drilling. So if I didn't read the letters, I
Oh,
don't
so
do that.
So
So
to the drilling, but not to
Yeah.
the structure. So that's
no, I never said that.
Dave.
Of
Come
course
on.
not, because I'm well aware that there are concerns. And so I never would have said that we hadn't received any negative feedback. We did not receive any negative feedback in regards to the drilling. And
Dave, I have
it-
neighbors on this call who've reached out to you since 2019, who, as you said, you didn't have time to check their emails, or
Yep.
their emails were responded with, "We don't know." And that was 2019. There's been opportunities. And
Yes,
so
right.
to suggest that in a unilateral statement that there's been no negative feedback, I stick with my phrase, it's disingenuous.
Okay, we'll let you stick with your phrase. Thanks, Chris.
We now have Herschel. Just one moment, please. All right, Herschel.
Hi, Herschel.
Hi. I'd like to ask if the town of Gibson's has a obligation to consult with the neighborhood before they put an industrial project in the neighborhood.
Technically, no.
No obligation.
No, but I will tell you that council has wanted to have more public engagement, and they have had increased a lot of public engagement, and they're not particularly impressed with the fact that we're getting negative feedback about this. I have to wear that. And as I have mentioned several other times, the feedback that we're receiving now and what we are able to do would be no different. It was pre-tender or now. And when you're looking at the 50% design drawings or whatever that Chris was mentioning, the size is the size. We're unable to
Yeah,
change
I know
that
you've
significantly.
already covered all that stuff.
Yeah.
You've already said that
Mhm.
there's nothing that we can do about it because it's already done. But the fact of the matter is, the project hasn't begun.
No,
The
no,
drilling
that's
of
not
the
what
well has occurred, right?
that's not what I said, or not, at least not what I meant. I said that the well was drilled where there was the highest likelihood of water, and it proved correct that there is a lot of water there. And then the size of the pump house was dictated by the equipment necessary to house the mechanical and electrical in order to pull that water out of the ground.
Did the town of Gibson's intend for this project to go to tenure without any consultation in the neighborhood?
I couldn't, I'm not sure whether there was no intention. We intended to let the public know what was going on. Honestly, when we went there with a big drilling rig, and I saw Crystal said that she had complained, we had not received any complaints about the location or the fact that there was going to be a well there. And that was my comment about that we hadn't received anything significant in the way of negative feedback. And as I say, the choice to put it there was not dictated by us. It was dictated by what's under the ground.
Right, I understand. You've said that a few times. I just wanted to go on the record that
Mhm.
me speaking to all the people in the two cul-de-sacs right here, not a
Yeah.
single person feels that they've been consulted about this project. So for us to read about it in the paper and have Phil discover it by talking to a different jurisdiction about this project doesn't
Yeah.
feel, like Chris was saying, as a very genuine protocol or procedure for talking to people and telling them, oh, we've already sold the project and therefore your comments aren't really going to change much at this point, when there's been 3 years of planning going on behind the scenes, in which you had 3 years to consult and get feedback from the community and the people that live across the street and whose kids play here.
And so you're saying that I've repeated myself a couple of times. The well and the size of the building, nothing we can do about it, whether it was 3 years ago or now, right? That's set. And so what we're here right now doing is to, apart from your a desire to have being consulted earlier, we're consulting you now and changing the same things, or willing to change the same things that we would at 50% design as we are now. And so I want to hear, apart from the consultation, and council here has heard that loud and clear, as we have, I want to hear what else there is about the well house that is a concern, apart from the fact that it's there. Because we can make the same changes now as we could at 50% design. And that's what we're here for, is to hear what those design features are that the neighborhood would like to see changed.
Okay, so you do understand that these have big impacts on the people in the neighborhood, and yet you set up a Zoom meeting with a 2-minute limit on each person. These have huge impacts for the people that live here, and these are not necessarily very straightforward concerns. I mean, you mentioned size, the size of it, the noise, the visual. There's a whole bunch of concerns around those things. But of course, the process matters, and of course, it matters that it went to tenure before consultation was beginning, which is really now. And so, yeah, I don't have a question anymore.
Okay, so
the next person can speak.
Okay.
Okay, we have one question from Crystal. She in the chat.
Yeah.
She was just wondering how large was the area that the well investigation group decided was going to be a good choice for well development. We are located very close to 2 large park areas, Ingalls and Mahan. Were these areas not within this suitable area?
Well, the whole of the town of Gibsons was looked at as far as where is the best likelihood of encountering water. We're in the same aquifer as the other wells, and the aquifer itself goes beyond town boundaries. So as far as options on where it could be constructed, the whole town of Gibsons. And based on the information that the model shows, we did look at, I'm not sure where you mean about Mahan Park, but the White Tower Park, which is up near Christensen Village, that was looked at as well. And this location was better than that location. And so this was the location that council approved that the well be drilled. And so, we're collecting more and more data as we go, and 10 years from now, we'll have more data to put in the model. So this was the location that was determined to be best by the hydrogeologists working on the project, and who by far know the most about the aquifer.
Okay, we had one other question that came in. This is from Tara. Well 6 is being built with expansion in mind for well 7 to be built later, correct? If yes, why does there need to be 2 wells that are not typical in a residential neighborhood?
So the 2 wells, all that the neighborhood's going to see in X number of years. I can't remember what the it depends on population growth. I think this is going to be, I believe, population of at least 6,000, 6,500, I believe, that this will be able to serve. and the equipment will be upgraded at that time so there's not going to be another structure. There is just going to be another hole in the ground, basically, that that is the same, size that you see there now. Not sure if that answers the question or not.
Okay, we have Des Delaney again.
Hey, Des.
Hi there. Do you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Just want to share, 20 years ago, I had a similar situation, a high-end residential house, very wealthy client. It was a geothermal installation. 20 years ago, geothermal installations. It was an acre lot on the west side. They were very noisy with pumps, probably larger pumps than what you're operating, but also had a generator involved. Bottom line, we built a 500 square foot bunker underground. The generator had hospital grade mufflers. We employed an acoustic engineer. We had to go to the Board of Variance with Vancouver City to actually obtain permission to do that. And they supported it 100%. So it can be resolved. And, if you're talking 40 by 10 for this particular situation, going underground resolved all sorts of problems with the noise and the way that we're able to muffle it. Second thing is there's really no big issue with actually stopping and redesigning, because you mentioned White Tower Park. That's $1 million project that Indian artifacts were found and it stopped work. Sure, there will be a penalty with the contractor if you do redesign, but you know what? It's just money, and it's the community is the ones. It's their money. It's their, what's it going to cost you in legal fees and drama and all the other stuff that goes on, as against the open and transparent discharge fee of what you'll pay on a 1.6 million contract to redesign it. So
just a question, apart from going underground, what, I guess this is a general question. So had we come to the community with saying, the well was successful, we need to build a building, it's going to be approximately 10 by 40, it's going to be a similar appearance outside, which is essentially where we're at right now. What do people feel would have been different, apart from feeling like you were consulted earlier? The method of communication often in these different projects are you informing the public, letting them know that something is getting built, the freeway is going down, whatever, or that a permit is being issued for such and such. So that's informing the public. And then you get far to the other end of the scale where really there's nothing, almost kind of like an official community plan, where you're saying, what's your vision? And it becomes this roundtable discussion where you gather everybody's thoughts. With this, it is largely informing, whether it was now or 2 years ago, it would be informing, because this is the location that the well was drilled and it was successful. And this is the size of building that's required. And so largely we would be informing you about that. And then we will be asking for feedback about what do you think about the appearance or what have you. So I guess I'm not clear as to what people feel would have been different that we would have received from you, because the changes that we're able to do now would have been the same then. So I'm still not quite clear on that, and I wish I was, because and I don't know, Phil, maybe you want to, you've been a driver behind this, apart from the concerns about the collaboration and communication, what yeah, anyway, you've heard me. Marcy, I think Phil indicated he'd be happy to answer or something.
Yeah, Phil, I'll let you speak, and then there's a couple more people that also have their hands up.
Sure.
So Phil, you can go ahead, please.
Yeah, thank you. So I think I can speak to a couple of the points that you mentioned, Dave. So, I mean, you say that there wasn't any, that the size is the size.
Yeah.
And I think that's not true. The size is the size based off of what you've made the size become. The size is, you found extra water, I get it, okay, let's twin it. Let's make a bigger structure than anything else around in order to accommodate future expansion. So, I mean, if you had come to us, and this is, I think, what you're getting at, if you had come to us earlier, what would you have gotten out of that? Well, you would have gotten more options. You would have gotten, first of all, feedback, full stop, of concerns. That's it.
Yes,
Secondly,
which we're getting now.
We're let's not go there right now.
No, Phil.
All right. So let me finish my thought.
No, Phil, wait a minute, second, just a second. We're two people talking to each other. I'm not opposed to you. I'm not an antagonist. I'm trying to hear you and listen to you. And there's a way that you can do that is more collaborative, it's easier to hear you. And just listen to me, that we are here to listen to you. And I want to listen to that. And I would just appreciate it if it was done in a more respectful way. And so anyway, back to it.
Yes.
So the size that you mentioned, that the size.
I wasn't finished my thought, Dave. So who's being collaborative now? I'm trying to be collaborative. I'm trying to express myself. You asked for my opinion. I'm trying to give it to you. You've just jumped in and cut me off.
Yeah, go ahead.
You've expressed your concerns around the way I'm portraying my verbal conversation piece here. And if I can just continue, if that's okay with you, Dave.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, thanks. So yeah, you mentioned the size is the size, but as I was trying to relay to you, the size could not have necessarily been the size that you came up with had you spoken to the residents and gotten a fair understanding of what the concerns were.
And so what would the options be at that point?
The options, I mean, that's what it would have been. That's the whole thing. The whole thing would have been that time. Well, did you consider, for example, you said there's a perfectly good well up the street. Why is it you're cramming everything into one spot? That's not appropriate necessarily for the size and scope of a structure. Why not separate and make things more equal and not have the biggest pump house in the Sunshine Coast sitting?
Okay, just interject just for a second. So I just want to,
can I
before you get too far ahead, Phil, I just need a clarification. You mentioned a well just up the street.
Well, a site for well. You said that the Christensen Site Village also drew favorable amounts of. No. Okay, sorry. The Mahan site. Am I wrong?
No. Well, so I didn't say that. I said we looked at
You told me that.
No, hold on a second. I said we looked at the White Tower location, which is the one up by Christensen Village. And when I meant we looked at it, is we looked at that being a possible place that we could drill. And it was determined that Oceanmount was far more favorable. And that was based on the information that we had. Oh, and you were talking about the well, sorry. We have a monitoring well, we have a monitoring well at Oceanmount within feet of the supply well. We have another monitoring well up kind of right behind the pool. And so that's the well we have is a monitoring well. And so we actually have very, very good information on both that site and Oceanmount site. And with that information, along with everything else, the Oceanmount site is far better.
Okay,
So that was what I meant.
appreciate that. I can appreciate
Okay.
that point, but are you saying that there's no way that you could have reduced the overall size of this current project in any way had you received information from the public stating that, you know what, this is not conducive to the form and character of this area. You need to look at other options. Are you telling me that there is absolutely no options? If I go pouring through the reports and I look into every single component that you said, that the other wells just don't, it's not possible to find another option, which is what I'm hearing here, then is my question, I suppose, is are you saying that there's no other options than what we have here?
The options as to where the well was drilled was determined back in 2019, and that's when that decision was made by council based on best information from a hydrogeologist, and after spending a lot of money on a well that did not produce, that the Oceanmount was the best location. And so by the time the well is drilled and 150,000, I can't remember the exact number, I'm sorry. By the time that's drilled, that set the stage for a pump house being built there. So the decision to drill there was done pre-2019, and it was based on the science that we have and the mapping that we've done. So once the hole's gone in, that's why we drilled the hole, was to produce or to create a water supply well. So that's when the decision was made. If we go now to the building, well, the building has to be built there because we got the well there. Yes, because we got the well there.
Two wells though.
So the
well 6 and well 7.
No, well 7's not there yet.
But the intention is to put it in, and you've already spoken to the amount of population with respect to when that well will be activated. We all know that well's meant to be going in. So you're putting a larger structure than is necessary with estimates for population that are going to definitely have another well accessed at that site, therefore a larger structure. And I can't reconcile the two things, that there is no other option with all the geology and all the engineering that we have available and a lot of other wells in the area, that this couldn't be split up to make it so that it wasn't so impactful on this neighborhood, this community, which, and have it 3 feet within 3 feet of my property line.
Mm-hmm.
But if you had some opportunities to bring this to our attention at the time, I think you would have maybe have tried other things. Maybe council, because you're putting this on council. You're saying council's approval. Council's approval is based off of information that you provided. That information should be including consultation, and there should have been some exercise of relaying concerns from the residents at that time when council made their approval. There's a constant pattern here of you're putting information in front of council without any consultation. So yes, of course they're going to. You're giving them limited information.
No, council can ask for
this whole process. The sequencing of events is incredibly frustrating and counterintuitive. So I hope that point has been made.
Oh yeah, no, we've got that. When I say council makes the decision, council makes the decision. And if they desire more information or want staff to be doing something else or want to pull the plug on the project, that is their decision. They do not always go with staff recommendations. What we do is we provide them with the information, that the best information we can, in order for them to make a decision. Sometimes that's engineering, sometimes it's planning, sometimes it's finance, sometimes it's all of that. And then council will usually be thinking of the political ends and come to some of the meetings and hear how council deliberates, because all we do is we provide them with information. They are making the decision, and they do not make a decision if they're not comfortable with it, or if they don't feel they have enough information. And so going back to what you were talking about as far as the timing of the consultation, what I'm hearing from you, and correct me if I'm wrong, what I'm hearing from you is that an option for you would be, is the public interested in having two smaller structures or one bigger one? Is that so a structure that, okay, fine, we're going to have a structure here, but we only want it large enough for one well. We don't want to have another well here. Is that what
Well,
I'm
you're
hearing?
already aware of the answer to that. You know, size is an issue in terms of this.
Oh, no, I know.
project.
I
So,
know.
I mean, you know, the point
No.
I'm trying to make is that there was no consultation brought forward that they've taken and brought forward to council for their consideration. Decisions were made based off of the other aspects that you brought up. And for that reason, there's always other options. But council was never made aware that there was going to be a huge amount of concerns around this. And so that weight was never brought to their attention. And for that matter, it's just considering it's part of the guidelines and policies of various, whether it's the Municipal Act, whether it's the OCP, there's a duty to consult, and that was a failure there. There's a failure there, and therefore this project shouldn't go ahead. And the design piece needs to be completely rethought. We need to go back to the point where you should have consulted. You should have consulted. Now that you know the information, at the construction phase, you're saying, well, you know what, this doesn't matter anymore. We're at the construction phase. It's going to cost us too much money to go back. Well, there was a failure at the start. It's costing us more money to have meetings like this and taking up staff's time. You're complaining about staff time and how much it's being used, but you're having to reverse engineer things at this point. How much is that costing?
Phil, you indicated Municipal Act and duty to consult. We do not have, I'm not saying that we can't come to the neighborhood. We do not have any legal obligation to come. There's certain processes like a rezoning or an OCP that require public hearings and bylaws require 3 readings and all that sort of stuff. Building municipal infrastructure does not require, there's no legislation requiring consultation. I think I saw somebody's email about regional growth, and this is not a regional growth plan. A regional growth plan is very specific about what that is. This is not something that council has to consult with. It's something they may desire to, but it's not something that's legislated.
Yeah, well, it's there's good faith to be had as well, I suppose.
Oh yeah, no, I get that, and we've heard loud and clear.
I mean, let's not kid ourselves. There's been zero. It's been zero. You were going to show up. You were going to see people show up tomorrow, and you would have put up some signs. That's what was going to happen. The only reason why we're even here is because I brought it up in front of council 3 weeks ago, and they directed you to have these meetings. Is that correct?
Council did want us to have these meetings, yes.
Okay, and the intention was that you were going to show up and put up some signs, as you mentioned. You were going to put up some signs, right? And you were
we got a sign.
Put out a notice like a couple of days in advance, which is what you did the first time during the first construction phase of the first drillings. So you're going to follow a similar pattern, and it's just unbelievable that's you're pointing to, well, you don't have to do it, but I mean, really, you don't have to. You were going to show up, and you were just going to build a 2-well pump house.
Phil,
I mean, that's just. I mean, it's. I don't know what That's where the legal piece comes in, Dave, because really, there's what's reasonable And the unintended consequences of from those actions of the town is just, it's actionable. I'll leave it there, Dave.
Just to be
I'll leave
clear,
it there.
Phil, I'm sharing with you about the idea of public hearings, etc. Is that there are certain legislated things that council has to follow, and that's a rule.
Based on good information, Dave. Based on good information.
Hang on, Phil. So there are certain things such as rezonings or adoption of an OCP or change of an OCP. Those are legislated and required. That does not mean that we don't do it. All right. And so when I'm saying that to you, I'm not sitting here going, we're in the clear, because council does want to hear from residents and does want to consult. And as I say, if there was a failure in that earlier this year, then that's got to land on me. And council did request that this meeting be held, and we're holding it and trying to hear what the concerns are about the pump house. And the I'd be happy to ask the engineer, say, if this was only housing equipment for one pump house, how much smaller would it be? I'm happy to do that. And council will hear of your concerns. And so you do have an audience. And when I say it's, as I say, when I say it's not legislated, all I want to do is be clear so that you have the best information that you can, so that you're not saying it's legislated when it's not required. That does not mean that council is not going to listen to you.
I've taken up a lot of time with this piece. I'm going to pass it over to others. I think there's some other questions, and I don't want to extend the overall meeting longer than it needs to be. We're at 8:34. I'm sensitive to time, so thank you.
Thanks,
I'll
Phil.
hand it over to the next speaker.
Thanks, Phil. Dave, I do have one question before I bring another speaker on from Tara or Tara. Does it have to be a diesel generator? Why can't it be a solar bank?
I can ask that question.
Okay.
It may be reliability, but I'm not familiar with those products.
Okay. I will ask Rudy is up next. Go ahead, Rudy.
All right. So I think just two things only, and I think the first thing is that I recognize the need for water in the community. I also logically can understand the second well and the potential for forward thinking. That makes sense to me. The structure is crazy. Like, I just don't know how else to put it. The fellow that spoke earlier and said moving the structure underground to take care of the aesthetics and the noise, I would be very interested to hear from everybody else what their opinion was on that. And I don't care about what's been designed and what you spent before you should have. That's all beside the point. I think that in a forward-thinking community, if we want to keep with the look of the community, if we can have the service but not see the eyesore and not have to deal with the noise ramifications, to see that thing underground, that would be interesting to me. But to put that thing above ground as it is, I would sooner see personally the ability for the growth potential in an underground facility that wouldn't impact the lives of the people in direct vicinity and allow for the potential growth than a smaller version up top. Like, to me, that would make sense. But I'd still want to know the noise implications and all that kind of stuff. And Dave, you asked a question earlier, in sincerity, you said, I don't understand, what it is that you can do. When you say you want to hear what our questions and concerns are, but then you say it's already been decided, the former question is disingenuous.
Rudy,
I want to hear what you think, but in the next phase you say you don't care because it's been decided. That's the frustration.
That's not what that is, Rudy.
But that's how it's coming across. That's
okay. That's not my intention, Rudy. My
I know,
intention
Dave,
is
and
to
I
tell
heard you,
you
you said, I don't
what we can
understand.
change.
I hear you.
Not
I'm
that I
not,
don't
I'm not
care.
attacking you at all. I'm just saying that, like, when you say you want to hear us, but
Yeah.
then you say it's decided 2019 and on,
Right.
that is like saying, what are your concerns? But we've already decided. It's like, you can't have those two things in the same sentence. And that's the frustration that we're feeling. So
All right.
anyway, that's
I'll be
it.
repeating myself. So thanks, Rudy.
You have a good night.
Anybody else, Marcy?
I
think we
don't
better
have
start
anybody
winding down here.
else. Yeah, there was, I'm just scrolling through the chat. Des did ask, so council can vote on stopping the project and redesigning to address the community concerns.
I suppose.
Also,
Yeah.
and then also generators at hospitals use natural gas.
Okay.
Have I missed anybody? Oh, I see one more hand up. So Herschel.
Mhm.
Go ahead,
Hi, Herschel.
Herschel.
Hi, it's more of a statement rather than a question. I'd like to thank Des, first of all, for coming up with some great ideas there. I like the idea of going underground. You know, there's a lot of brilliant minds in this community, and consultation really does go a long way. I mean, even just in our cul-de-sac, we have a lot of brilliant people here. So thanks for that, Des. I would also like to see a stop work order placed until consultation can be furthered. And I know that there are some people that did not speak that would like the same. So I just wanted councillors to be aware of that. And thanks for your time.
Thanks, Herschel. Are there any more questions, Marcy?
There's no more. And I was going to say too, that if anybody still has any questions or suggestions, you can definitely send anything to the infrastructure email. I'll type it in the chat just so you have the email address.
24 people, including us, Phil. So 21 attendees, and then the three staff. Okie doke. You can still also email in any questions you have to infrastructure@gibsons.ca. As I say, council, can tell you almost for certain that council is going to be talking about this, and they will provide any direction that they feel is necessary. So thank you for taking up a chunk of your evening and sharing your concerns. All right, Marcy, if you just want to shut the webinar down and just go back to a practice session.
Are you even able to do that?
Or
we could log back in after though.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's
All
fine.
right. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Thanks, folks.
Thanks.